So there have been a number of relatively minor changes to the LSAT over the years. They made a smaller change to the reading comp section in 2007 when they added dual passages to short passages, replacing one long passage. They transitioned from offering it on paper to on a tablet to online at the beginning of the pandemic. They made it change it from 5 sections to 3 sections to 4 sections. But the biggest change, of course, is coming up later this year when they're removing the logic games section and replacing it with a second scored logical reasoning. That is the biggest change of all I've seen.
Wow, wow. Yeah, that's a perfect segue. Can you, for those who don't know what that change is about, can we dive a little bit deep into what's been modified?
Yeah, of course. So the LSAT's been pretty much in the same format since 1991 with prep test number 1, the first released prep test in the current format. Now, LSAC got sued a couple of years back by a blind test taker who said that he was at an unfair disadvantage on the LSAT because he couldn't benefit from diagramming logic games the way that other test takers can. And to me, that's a pretty fair point if you think about it, because virtually everybody creates some kind of diagram to help them solve logic games. And so if you can't see, you're not going to be able to benefit from diagramming in the same way. He asked LSAC for accommodations, and they weren't able to give him accommodations that would place him on a level playing field. So he sued, and LSAC ultimately settled the lawsuit. This was over 4 years ago. And they agreed to develop a new version of the test without the current logic game section. So here we are over 4 years later, and LSAC announced they're going to modify the exam to address his concerns by removing the game section entirely and just adding in a second scored logical reasoning instead. So the LSAT is changing for everybody, starting with the August LSAT.
Interesting. Is there a reason why they made that change instead of making a modified version of the LSAT for people who are disabled?
That's a really good question. That's kind of what I would think would be the more moderate approach, the more moderate compromise. But LSAC was really stubborn on this point. And you could say that's not really fair to people who can't benefit from logic games the same way. From their perspective, and I'm not taking their position here, I'm just presenting what I would expect their position to be. From their perspective, they're really big on the integrity of the exam. And in their view, the integrity of the exam means that they don't make any changes for anybody under virtually any circumstances. So they've been sued a number of times for refusing to grant other accommodations in other contexts as well. Like someone who, say, suffers from test anxiety or ADHD, they would not grant them extra time accommodations in many cases. They got sued many, many times for that as well. And ultimately, they then swung the pendulum the completely opposite direction from saying, we're hardly ever going to grant accommodations to now, we will grant accommodations to virtually anybody who asks for them if they have a doctor sign off on it. So you can go to any doctor and say, I suffer from anxiety, I want extra time. You find the doctor who's going to give you that result, and then you can get your extra time. So I think they've gone from one extreme to another extreme. But yes, I would have expected that if they had just compromised for that blind test taker 4+ years ago, they'd given him a version of the test without the games and with another logical reasoning instead, they could have still kept games for everybody else.
I see.
But they didn't want to make the change just for a small number of people. They were really stubborn, and now it's changing for everybody, which I think is a very big radical change.
Wow.
But from what they report, they say that it's going to be a roughly equivalent exam, which that makes me think, why'd they ever have games in the first place? If logical reasoning is just as good, why did you ever have it at all? And why were you so stubborn before? So I don't know, but it is what it is. So a lot of folks are going to be taking a very different exam later this year.
I see. Okay. And in terms of like how this will be assessed by admissions, law school admissions offices around the country, there is no fair advantage that you took the logical reasoning based LSAT or the logic games LSAT versus an LSAT that has no logic games, right?
Yeah, from the law school's perspective, they're not going to care which version of the LSAT you took. They don't care if you take it with the games or without the games, just as they don't care whether someone took it on paper or on a tablet or online, with all the different formats over the years, pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic. For them, it's all the same. They just care about the score out of 180.
Okay, I see. And it's not adaptive, is it? Is any section adaptive? Okay,
it's not.
Okay, just the standard. And what's the new breakdown in terms of duration on each of the sections?
So With standard timing, meaning someone who does not have extra time, it's going to be 4 35-minute sections with a 10-minute break between sections 2 and 3. So you're looking at roughly 2.5 hours in total.
Okay. And now what's the sequence of the sections going to be?
They could be in any order. So you could be getting logical reasoning first. Somebody else gets reading comp first. If you're taking it before the change, you might get logic games first. So they're scrambled up, which means if you're studying and taking practice tests, you want to study with a variety of orders of different sections. So you want to mix it up, and whatever your worst case scenario is, take it with that just in case so that you're ready for anything.
If you're ready to embark on the exciting journey of graduate admission in the United States, make sure you're fully prepared by downloading our free ebook, The International Student's Guide to Studying in the United States. Inside, you will find a comprehensive roadmap detailing everything you need to know to succeed. So don't miss out. Click the link in the description section below to download your free copy now.